Hey, y'all. I'm Rob,
And I'm Erica.
and you're listening to Pumpkin Spice.
And Nothing Nice podcast.
You are listening to episode 15, Music the Great Storyteller.
Trigger warning. Topics discussed in this episode may not be suitable for all listeners.
Recording is in progress.
Perfection. Hi. Um, I'm sorry that I had to take off my lipstick before we got started.
It's totally okay. I was eating dinner.
You know what's silly is that it was one of those drying lipsticks, so I had to sit there like a blow-up doll until it dried. You had to like suck in your spit. Like, what man created that makeup? Seriously. Anyway, how was your day?
My day it was a Monday. It was a Monday. So of course we were short-staffed and we were super, super busy, as is the usual, because it's a Monday.
It was super rainy down here.
It was not. It was actually pretty nice. When I got off work, it was in the 50s Fahrenheit. Very bright and sunny.
I hope you enjoyed it.
We're supposed to have some weather overnight.
Oh, you're welcome. It's ours.
Oh, thank you.
I'm giving it to you.
It may freeze for about an hour and a half just to make the drive to work annoying, and then by noon it'll be in the 50s again. So,
oh, that's not ours. That's not ours. Ours is just angry and warm.
Yeah.
So today we are talking about, and I kind of predict that this will be an installment type episode, because there's lots of good songs out there. Today we're doing Music the Great Storyteller, and we are covering songs that have profound backstories, or just, something that you didn't think about when you heard the song originally. You fell in love with the song, but then you learned later on and you were like, oh my God, what the fuck was I listening to this whole time?
Right.
There's lots of them. And I know that in the original list that we had discussed, I instantly cut off one of them because I was like, that is an episode in itself. And then when we went through and we picked ours, then I had to cut another one because it was becoming a monster. And to be honest, the podcast Crime Junkie, I think, covered that song too recently. So not to copycat or anything like that. It was an easy one to mark out. So, do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
It doesn't matter. Mine are they're profound, but they're not really long stories.
Okay.
So I'm gonna do 3 songs, but they're by 2 people, right? One person did 2 of the songs. And I want to start off with one that I think a lot of people may not know they actually know this song, right? It's the song Pumped Up Kicks.
That is a catchy tune.
That is a catchy tune. And, growing up, like, it was a song that, like, everybody our age would sing.
Yes. And even I am not sure of all the meanings. I know of a little bit, but like, I think as children, it was just catchy and we just sang along without any regard, reckless abandon, if you will.
Right. So the song came out when we weren't too young. We were adults. I was probably
What year?
In my early 20s. 2010, so 13 years ago. I was in
24.
25. Yeah. So
I had a baby that year.
Right. So, but it was on the radio. It was super popular. The kids know it. And then as adults, we were just singing it. And most of us didn't pay attention to what was going on. But you have to think about the climate. The first school shooting that was really big was Columbine. And that was in like 96.
We were little.
Yeah, we were in like the 7th grade. So this artist, his name is Mark Foster. He initially was a jingle writer, right? So he wrote commercially for brands, for like Honey Bunches of Oats, Verizon, things like that initially, but he wanted to be bigger, and he had a lot that he wanted to say, so he got into songwriting, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he enlisted drummer Mark Pontius and friend who played bass Cubby Fink to help him bring his songs to life. They became the band Foster and the People, and the musicians released their debut song Pumped Up Kicks, September 14th, 2010. Now, what is this song about? Okay. So on the surface, you're thinking they're talking about pumped up kicks. And if you think back into like the 80s and 90s, the Reebok shoes that you could pump up,
Yep.
they were like in, right? And if you didn't
Yeah.
have those shoes, you were not popular. You were seen
Right.
as broke, right? But the song is more about the mental health aspect of the teenagers that didn't have the pumped up kicks. So it's about a kid named Robert who is only mentioned, well, only named once, and it's in the beginning of the song where he says Robert's got a quick hand. He'll look around the room but won't tell you his plan. He found a six-shooter gun in his dad's closet and with a box of fun things. I don't even know what, but he's coming for you. Yeah, he's coming for you.
Holy
So,
shit. I guess I never even knew the lyrics.
right. So after finding his father's gun, Robert imagines others running from him as he wields the weapon. You better run, outrun my
Outrun my
gun.
gun.
The scene never
Ooh.
unfolds, though. Robert only imagines and toys with the idea of all the other kids running from him. It's a horror of the mind, right? So Foster gave an interview on CNN Entertainment in 2012, and he said that he wrote Pumped Up Kicks when he began to read about the growing trend in teenage mental illness. I wanted to understand the psychology behind it because it was foreign to me. It was terrifying how mental illness among the youth had skyrocketed in the last decade. I was scared to see where the pattern was headed if we didn't start changing the way we were bringing up the next generation. And so his entire song was that look into mental health of teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
And it was all about a teen with trauma imagining shooting up his school.
That's terrible, 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 terrible.
He wanted to use the songs, the fact that the song was so viral as a means for him to speak out about gun violence.
Right.
But now he was stated that he was having second thoughts because he states that
is it like bringing attention to it, bringing
where we are at now compared to where we were 10 years ago is horrific. Shootings have continued to happen, and I feel like there are so many people that have been touched either personally or by proxy by a mass shooting in this country, and that the song has become almost a trigger of something painful they might have experienced. And that's not why I want to make music, he says. At some points, I do make music to bring awareness to something, but I make music to connect with the people. And I feel like the awareness of that song, the awareness that that song brought and the conversation that the song brought, that's been fulfilled. We're still talking about it 10 years later, and it still gets brought up. But he doesn't necessarily think that he wants the song to be, an anthem because of how triggering it can be for the thousands of people that have been touched by mass shootings in this country over the last, now 20 years.
Yeah. It's pretty ugly. School is scary. Like, it was scary when we were kids, and it's scarier now too. So I can see the fear that he had, if we continue to talk about it, when does it stop being talking about a problem and start looking like a solution?
Right. Absolutely. And I think that's something that, our government doesn't take serious enough. It's all thoughts and prayers, but never any real conversation about changes. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what did you want to talk about, girl?
So I'm actually going to piggyback off that.
Okay.
But we're going to go not way back, but backer than that. We're going to look at the song Jeremy by Pearl Jam.
That's such a good song. hold your thought. At the end of this episode, y'all, make sure you hit like, share, and subscribe. But at the end of this song, we're going to play little snippets of all the songs that we featured, so that you all can think about what songs we're talking about.
Yes, if we can figure out how to do that without getting sued. Yes.
As I've researched it, 10 seconds or less, and we should be fine.
Okay. So I have heard this song. I'm not a big Pearl Jam girly, but it's a song that pretty much everybody knows. I don't understand how you wouldn't, unless you were like very young today, or relatively young, because it was a jam in the 90s when grunge rock was big. But I never knew that there was anything to it until I saw a TikTok talking about songs with backstories. And so I was like, are you joking? No. So the information that I got today is from wikipedia.com, but also from the website jeremywadedell.com. And I hope I'm saying that last name right. But if there is another place that I received information, I'll cite it then. But so Jeremy is a song by American rock band Pearl Jam, with lyrics written by vocalist Eddie Vedder and music composed by bassist Jeff Ament. Jeremy was released in August 1992 as the third single from Pearl Jam's debut album, 10, and that was in 1991. Jeremy is a song created from two scenarios. In December 1991, Vedder told David Sadoff in an interview that the second scenario the song is based on involved a student that Vedder knew from his high school in San Diego, California, who had committed a school shooting. This is his quote. I actually knew somebody in junior high, San Diego, California, that did the same thing, just about. Didn't take his life, but ended up shooting up an oceanography room. I remember being in the halls and hearing it, and I had actually had altercations with this kid in the past. I was kind of a rebellious fifth grader, and I think we got in fights and stuff. So it's a bit about this kid named Jeremy, and it's also a bit about a kid named Brian that I knew, and I don't know, the song, I think it says a lot. I think it goes somewhere, and a lot of people interpret it different ways, and it's just been recently that I've been talking about the true meaning behind it, and I hope no one's offended, and believe me, I think of Jeremy when I sing it. However, I and all sorts of people on the internet cannot find information on Brian. The scenario that he talked about is either in coded language or it did not happen. Because where he lived, someone brought up the fact that where he lived during the time frame that this would have occurred, the only school shooting is a different school situation where a female, a young girl who shot up an elementary school because she didn't like Mondays, which is another song. There was a song written about it, but it's not this scenario. So the information that is known and where the song title comes from is about Jeremy Wade Dell. The Dallas Morning News newspaper is as follows. A Richardson High School sophomore described as a loner who had been in counseling fatally shot himself Tuesday in front of a classroom of about 30 students. Jeremy Wade Dell, 16, who had transferred from a Dallas school, died instantly after firing a .357 caliber Magnum into his mouth about 9:45 a.m., police said. Because he had missed class, the teacher in his second period English class told Jeremy to get an attendance slip from the school office. An admittance slip from the school office. Instead, he returned with a gun, police said. He walked directly to the front of the classroom. Miss, I got what I really went for, he said. He then placed the barrel in his mouth and fired, according to Sergeant Ray Pennington, a police spokesman. The shooting occurred before the students or teacher Faye Barnett could react, said school district spokeswoman woman Susan Dacus Wilson. It stunned students and faculty members throughout the school at 1250 West Beltline Road. Brian Jackson, 16, said he was working the combination on his locker just outside Jeremy's English class when he heard a loud bang like someone had just slammed a book on a desk. I thought they were doing a play or something, he said, but then I heard a scream and a blonde girl came running out of the classroom and she was crying. Frightened but curious, Brian looked into the classroom and saw Jeremy lying on the floor bleeding. The teacher was standing against the wall, crying and shaking, Brian said. Some people were standing around her, holding her as if to keep her from falling. Another student, Howard Perry Fellman, an 11th grader, was in the government class when he heard the shot. At first, students joked about the noise, thinking that someone was playing around, he said. But then we heard a girl running down the hall screaming, he said. It was a scream from the heart. Sergeant Pennington said Jeremy apparently had given some thought to his actions because he left a suicide note with a classmate. Investigators would not disclose its contents. Principal Jerry Bishop said Jeremy's class attendance had been sporadic. Mr. Bishop said he met with the boy and his father to discuss the problem. Police said that Jeremy had been in counseling with his father, but they did not know the specifics. Sergeant Pennington said police did not know where the youth got the gun and had no clue why he would kill himself in a crowded classroom. The classmates who witnessed the shooting were immediately ushered to a secluded room for counseling. About 30 members of the school district volunteer crisis team arrived to counsel students. Classes continued throughout the day. Some students were allowed to leave early, but counselors encouraged them to stay at school and discuss their feelings. Lisa Moore, 16, said she knew Jeremy from the in-school suspension program. He and I would pass notes back and forth, and he would talk about life and stuff. She said Jeremy wanted to discuss the boy she was dating and also mentioned that he was having trouble with one of his teachers. He signed all of his notes right back. But on Monday, he wrote later days. I didn't know what to make of it, she said, but I never thought this would happen. However, Sean Forrester, 17, remembered Jeremy as friendly with no outward signs of turmoil. He never looked like he had anything wrong with him. He always made a joke over everything, Sean said. Jeremy was the son of Joseph R. Dell of Richardson, with whom he lived, and Wanda Crane. The couple divorced in 1979, according to Dallas County court records. Mr. Dell could not be reached for comment. Ms. Crane, though, through a spokesman, declined to comment. Tuesday's shooting was the first known teen suicide in a Richardson school. It was the first by a Richardson student since 1988, when student suicides prompted the creation of the Crisis Intervention Program in May that year. 3 Richardson students committed suicide during the first half of 1988. They included a 6th grader and 2 sophomores at J.J. Pierce High School. One of the sophomores hanged himself from a tree behind Mohawk Elementary School during a weekend. In 1985, a 17-year-old Arlington student shot himself in front of 4 fellow students in the drama classroom at Arlington High School. Earlier, an outbreak of teen suicides in Plano, where 8 youths killed themselves in 1983 and 1984, helped focus national attention on the plight of suicidal teenagers. Students and counselors agreed that the shock of Jeremy's public demise would have a lingering effect on the Richardson students, particularly the witnesses. They are going to go through a ton of sadness, anxiety, and fear, said Cheryl Pender, a counselor with Willow Park Hospital in Plano and former director of the Suicide and Crisis Center in Dallas. So that's a lot of information, but that is the news article that came out about it. Wow.
Right.
Shit
And
was heavy. So
and to think that that was 40 years ago.
I have more though. Do you have questions?
No, I
Do you
don't
have questions? Okay.
No, please go on.
Okay.
As you were.
Okay. Pearl Jam's Jeremy became a classic grunge song that touched many people all over the world and immortalized the last act of a confused and depressed boy. For the Dell family, the popularity of the song became a nightmare. This is information that's based on the website jeremywadedell.com. Loosely based on fact, the song is a work of art and thus did not set out to provide a realistic image of Jeremy. Through the years, people who knew Jeremy were willing to share their knowledge. Thanks to them, it is possible to gain a more realistic picture of what Jeremy was like when he was alive. This is from a news company called WFAA. They had an interview with Jeremy's mother, Wanda. That day that he died did not define his life, said Wanda, Jeremy's mother. He was a son, a brother, a nephew, a cousin, a grandson. He was a friend. He was talented. She said the day he killed himself, everything changed. I was in my office at work, Wanda said of the moment she heard of her son's death. I didn't believe it. I was in shock. Not my son. I was going to pick him up that afternoon at school. She went into a fog. There was a student named Brittany King who was 16 at the time, and she was in the classroom with Jeremy when he killed himself. She said this was a big wake-up call. Like, you know what? Life is not all hunky-dory all the time. Real things, tragedies happen. It made me grow up, pretty quick, literally overnight, King said. She said she remembers the moment like it was yesterday. Shock and fear went into my mind, she said. All the students kind of ran into the back of the room and huddled. Then King said that she made a split decision that will forever haunt her. Should I look? She said as she began to tear up while she recalled the aftermath, I remember thinking, should I look? And I did. I looked. I don't know why. I don't know why I looked. And I'll never forget. I will never forget it. A newspaper clipping about the shooting caught the attention of Pearl Jam, and the rest is history. I was angry at them for writing that song, King said. I thought, you don't know. You weren't there. That story isn't accurate. Back at Wanda's home, Jeremy's artwork hangs on the walls. He won first prize at the Texas State Fair. His mother said of his talent as an artist. He won best of shows, and this was all before he was 12 years old. At 7, he drew an award-winning piece of an elephant. He had a gift. 12 years ago, Wanda decided to move on by helping others. She started leading a grief support group at her church. Now when Wanda sees school shootings on the news, she said she thinks of the mothers. I think of the sisters, she said. I think of what will be said or what opinions will be thought about. It's the mothers and the sisters that I want to wrap my arms around and tell them that someday it'll be better. So the website jeremywadedell.com has a timeline of Jeremy's life, including information on his suicide attempts, the first of which was following a breakup in April of 1990. So when he actually shot himself and killed himself, it was not the first time that he had attempted suicide, nor was it the second or the third. There was a comment, though, that I saw, and it was under an October 1990 little blurb. And it stated, maybe this is when he lost it. He was suicidal before, but the 3 attempts seemed more or less like they were cries for help and attention. Not really planned out. The last reported attempt was in July. He went several months without incident as far as the police records go. For any adolescent moving several times in a short time span, changing classes all the time, not really being able to keep long-lasting friends or develop relationships must lead to feelings of alienation. Jeremy must have felt this way too, like he was not able to fit in anywhere, although this was hardly his fault. Adding to the fact that it was probably not true, as some friends remember him to this day, depression makes you not realize those things. Add the broken home he came from with all the weirdness this brings, almost every divorced child can whistle this tune to some degree. It became apparent Jeremy wanted to have a functional family of his own. Guess this is why he so desperately searched for a girlfriend who was committed to marry him in order to start a family, something to call his own. All those problems were destined to worsen his mental condition. Some friends who knew Jeremy suggested that he suffered from undiagnosed borderline personality disorder. Wonder what the readers think. BPD is certainly a possibility, but it was not mentioned in the police reports. BPD patients suffer from tantalizing fear of losing someone when they are in a relationship. Therefore, they appear clingy and controlling sometimes. They also face anger issues. It is a very complex disease that is usually only diagnosed in early adulthood due to being so difficult to grasp. So, I have my mental health journey. You have your mental health journey. But I can safely say that borderline personality disorder, isn't it also known as BPD?
Yeah.
Yes, BPD. I don't remember hearing about that as a child or as a teenager.
No, I'm not sure exactly when it became like a thing in public.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I know when I was younger, they diagnosed me BPD, but then they changed the diagnosis to bipolar as when I was an older adult because they did scans and all the fancy shit. BPD is a reaction to trauma. It's a personality disorder, right? So it's born from some form of trauma,
Mm-hmm.
right? And bipolar is chemical, right? So there are a lot of similar symptoms between bipolar disorder and BPD and NPD and all those other personality disorders, but bipolar disorder is not a personality disorder, right?
Right.
So I know I was an older teenager when they tried to throw the BPD at me. And then I was probably 25 or so when I got the bipolar diagnosis. I don't know when BPD became, I don't want to say popular. That's an ugly word for it. When it became more noted and more notable.
Right.
But I know a lot of people now that have BPD. And it is a very difficult mental illness to control, to work through and heal from. And there are a lot of comorbidities with it. There isn't just one flavor of BPD, which is the hard part. You can have any of a multitude of symptoms to have BPD. So
In October 1993, Vedder explained the song further in Rockline interview with KISW FM in Seattle, Washington. It came from a small paragraph in a paper, which means you kill yourself and you make a big old sacrifice and try to get your revenge. That all you're going to end up with is a paragraph in a newspaper. 64 degrees and cloudy in a suburban neighborhood. That's the beginning of the video, and that's the same thing in the end. It does nothing. Nothing changes. The world goes on and you're gone. The best revenge is to live on and prove yourself. Be stronger than those people, and then you can come back. I have feelings about that statement. They're not good feelings, but this was in 1993.
But
And
at the same time, though, if you think about it, right? If you think about death, regardless of how the death happens, right? The first things that happen are people start to grieve. You have a funeral, you have an internment or a cremation or whatever. People come to the funeral, people leave the funeral, then people go back to work, people start living their lives, people start, slowly healing from that experience. And then it comes to a point where that change isn't so much a significant portion of some people's lives anymore. It is as if nothing changed, right? Now, of course, people will be affected at greater extremes. People close to the person that died will have, more lasting changes. But I've heard a lot of thoughts on not just suicide, but death in general. Like, you have to live for today, because when you're gone, eventually no one will remember you anyway.
mm-hmm.
Right? There will come a time when you will no longer be a thought in someone's brain at some point. So, that's, I wouldn't say I disagree with you, but that's kind of.
Yeah, I get what he's saying with that. And I understand the point of, I get it. I get the point that he's trying to make. But at the same time, it's like he read an article and that was as deep as he looked into it. Ish.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Thanks.
Like there was so much more to this child than that. But he even in his statement, it's almost like he limited Jeremy to just a newspaper article himself. And it's like, yes, you're right. The world will go on. The world will go on. However, that shows nothing of the struggles that this child faced, that the outside forces that he faced, the internal struggles that he faced. So I get what he's saying.
It was tasteless and tacky. I don't
just go on
that.
And live.
Right.
But it's like there was
definitely undermining the struggle, because
yes.
People don't just kill themselves because they think like, I'm just going to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There are reasons that people feel as though they need to do that. And
yes.
when people make comments like that, yes, it does kind of undermine the battle that person dealt with. And I've been touched by suicide more times than I care to count over the last 2 years. And I can only imagine what they were going through when they decided to make that decision. And, part of me wants to hope that they thought it wouldn't work, and oops, it did, but I think also.
And in his case, to tag on that, in his case, this was not the first attempt.
Right.
This was not the third attempt.
And oftentimes it's never the first time.
So you're right. Like, there was so much more that led up to this moment. But this was the time where it was in his mind. He said, this is the final.
And I'm doing it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's really sad and it's really hard to deal with. I really connected when you said that she made the hardest decision whether or not she should look or not, and how that affected her. My uncle was murdered, right? And, his second wife was convicted of his murder, right? Now, my grandmother.
Am I cutting this out?
No, I'm not saying any names. I'm not saying any names.
Okay.
And I mean, I did get permission to talk about it from my uncle's sister, but whatever, it doesn't matter. Anyway, so my uncle was murdered, and the person that got convicted of his murder was his second wife, right? And my grandmother and he had not been in contact in some time at the time of his murder. And when we got to the hospital, his body had already been identified and whatnot. But my grandmother decided that she had to see the body. She had to see the body right then to tell him goodbye properly, I suppose. And who got dragged with her to go see the body? Yeah, this guy. And gruesome doesn't even begin to describe what that looks like. A bullet wound to the head, I don't care what part of the head it is gruesome. And I can very much remember every single detail of that. And that will never go away. I don't think about him at the funeral. I don't think about him when he was alive anymore. Every time the memory of my uncle comes into my brain, it's when I saw his body at the hospital. And so I know exactly what that woman was saying when she said that moment changed my life forever.
If I can add to that, share my personal experience. This is part of 13, episode 13, the last episode. But a lot of my trauma stems from losing my friend who was shot in the head. But I didn't see her body. It was closed, casket, coffin, whatever you call it. And I have struggled for years with that. Not because I have this morbid curiosity, but because there is some part of my brain that needed to see that, to close it.
Right.
Because
and
I have dreams, I have nightmares that she is just in hiding, that she can never have her life, she can never live out because this person is in jail for the crime, for killing her. But I dream that she is still around. Today was a rough day for me. We didn't sleep well last night. I came home after I took the kids to school and I took a nap and I dreamed about her. Right. And there is a difference in the level of pain when dreaming that someone is dead that's dead, and dreaming of somebody that's dead and you see them as alive. Because your brain didn't. I can't access that important part of my brain that says, no, really, her body is in that grave in the ground. No, really, she doesn't live somewhere else. She doesn't have a cell phone you can call. No, really, you will never be able to say things to her that you need to say.
Right.
And it is, I understand just how painful that was for this girl to have to make that choice, because it's a check-in with reality. It's like, holy fuck, a lot just happened all at once. Am I hallucinating this moment? Or did this really actually happen? And so I understand with your grandmother, and I understand with you, and I know that is a trauma in itself, just to experience that moment.
The only like solace from that entire thing was he did have an open casket funeral, which I feel like was a mistake, but that's just my personal opinion. I'm not his child. I was not the one who set up the funeral. Mm-hmm. They did clean him up really well and put a hat on him and stuff, because the wound was the crown of his head, right? Anyway, but to this day, I'm an avid horror fan. I'm not going to lie. I love bloody, gory horror movies. It's very much different when you're confronted with it in real life, right?
Yeah. And horror movies are horror movies. They're extravagant. They're extreme. It's, oh my God, holy shit. It's not, oh my God.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, because then you're not presented with the smells. You're not presented with the emotions. You're not presented with
the body changes.
And he was pronounced dead at like 6 a.m. and we saw his body at like 9:30 a.m.
And changes already happened.
So he was still, not completely discolored or anything like that. But I mean, it was still, not to be graphic, but very, very gory. And that is not something I recommend anybody do unless they have to identify a body. Never, just don't do it. Just don't
Yeah,
do it, because that's not something you will ever forget,
it is.
ever.
It is very. All of a sudden, life becomes very fragile in that
Mhm.
moment. I've
It's
seen dead
the
bodies. I've seen family members,
it's
and
the it's the
even
biggest
before,
hurdles.
in those scenarios before where it was like a natural passing,
Hmm.
that body, I don't, I don't have for myself. I don't have lingering thoughts of those people because I know that they are gone. I experienced it, and I wasn't aware in myself until her death
Hmm.
that a part of that grasp for me was to see the second part,
Yeah.
was to no longer see them as warm, as
Right.
alive. And if you were put in that scenario, like you said, like, just if you can easily say, I understand that this person is gone, let that be it. Let that be what you need. Don't
That's it.
don't desire more, because everything is fragile at that moment. Everything is different. It's no longer your happy or your formed thoughts of existence. It's different. But anyway, I want to take a moment real quick and add that this is not the basis of this episode. These are just two songs that we have covered. But I want to throw out that if you or anyone you know feels helpless, you can call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-TALK 8255. And also, just to cover the base, if you are in a relationship that is not healthy, remember, love does not hurt. There are resources available. Get out while you can. It does not, that relationship will not get better. You deserve life and peace. So,
Period. Um, so the next song adventure we're going to go on is a song that people our generation grew up with, and a lot of us, the older generation, like our parents, probably know more about the backstory than we knew growing up, right? This is a song that was co-wrote by Eric Clapton, and it's called "Tears in Heaven." Not to be confused with Tears from Heaven, but Tears in Heaven.
what is
Um,
Tears from Heaven?
it's um, Tears from Heaven. It was a song for a TV show that was different than Tears in Heaven.
Oh, okay.
But so Tears in Heaven is a song, as I said, co-wrote by Eric Clapton, and it was written by him and Will Jennings. It was written about the death of Eric Clapton's 4-year-old son, Connor. It appeared in the movie Rush in 1991. In January 1992, Clapton performed the song in front of an audience at Bay Studios in Berkshire, England, for MTV Unplugged, with the recording appearing on his Unplugged album. Now, the thing about his son fell out of like a 52-story or 53-story
I
window.
think it was 54, 53 or
Um,
54.
53rd floor, yeah. So
Holy shit.
on March 20th, 1991, Clapton's 4-year-old son Connor, whom he had with Lori Del Santo, died after falling from the 53rd floor window of a New York City apartment belonging to a friend of Connor's mother. After
Real
isolating
quick,
himself. Mhm.
they have windows that work that high up?
Not anymore.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. Um, he began writing the music for the Rush. He isolated himself for a while. And when he decided to begin working again, he was writing music for the film Rush. He dealt with the grief of his son's death by co-writing Tears in Heaven for the soundtrack. Um, and the way the song came about was kind of a really big collaboration between Clapton and Jennings. Jennings said in an interview that Clapton said to me, "I want to write a song about my boy." Eric Clapton had the first verse of the song written, which to me is all the song, but he wanted me to write the rest of the verse and lines and the release. Um, Even though I told him that it was so personal, he should write everything himself. He told me that he had admired the work I did with Steve Winwood, and finally there was nothing else but to do as he requested. Despite the sensitivity of the subject, this is a song so personal and so sad that it is unique in my experience of writing songs. In an interview in '92, Eric Clapton said in an interview that this was in the back of my head. It didn't really have a reason for being until I was scoring this movie. Then it sort of had a reason to be. And it's a little ambiguous because it could be taken to be about Connor, but can also meant to be a part of the film. In an interview with Daphne Barak, he said, "I almost subconsciously used music for myself as a healing agent, and lo and behold, it worked. I have got a great deal of happiness and a great deal of healing from music." He wrote another song about his son Connor, and this is why this is a kind of a 2-for-1. He also wrote the song "Circus," and it was
around the same time.
It was a little bit after. It was about his last day that he spent with Connor. And after several years of performing the song live, in 2004, he decided to stop performing it because he said, paraphrasing, that he had dealt with the healing process that he needed to do, and he had grieved, and he was no longer feeling those emotions that the song, I guess, required for him to sing it. And so he didn't sing it from 2004 till again in like 2011. He sang it again, but he felt that he was a little bit more detached from the scenario when he sang it in 2011. That song was so huge in the 90s when I was a kid. I knew the song when I was a kid and didn't even know what it was about. But
I've never heard of Circus, but Tears in Heaven, yeah, I've heard that a lot.
He made numerous public service announcements to raise awareness for childproofing windows and staircases. He, as I said, stopped performing Tears in Heaven in 2004, as well as the song "My Father's Eyes." As I paraphrase, I don't feel the loss anymore. Right. I don't feel the loss anymore, which is so much part of performing these songs. I really have to connect with the feelings that were there when I wrote them. They're kind of gone, and I really don't want them to come back, particularly. My life is different now. They probably just need a rest, and maybe I'll introduce them with a much more detached point of view. They did come back in the set list, performed as recently as 2013, my apologies, and in 2022. Genesis wrote a song called "Since I Lost You" for the "We Can't Dance" album, and he was a longtime friend of Clapton's, and said in interviews the song was inspired by Clapton's loss of Connor. Dana Key wrote a song in response to Tears in Heaven and Clapton's loss of Connor, titled "Dear Mr. Clapton." And so, that song has branched and become, so profound that other people have started singing their homages to his loss as well. But now that's one of the reasons why windows in hotels don't open. One of the reasons why high-rise buildings windows don't open, for safety, because children can and will find a way to open things. And, took seconds.
That's also fucking terrifying. I have like a reoccurring nightmare. Do you remember the TRL studios from like a billion years ago? It was that the glass windows, the whole. Mm-hmm. I have dreams that I'm standing in like a room like that up against the glass. And I don't know why that terrifies me so much. But like just right over there. Just right over there is no more ground, no more. And it fucks me up in my sleep.
There's a place in Vegas called the Stratosphere. It's like the last place on the strip, and of course it's the cheapest, and that's where I stay if I go to Vegas, because it's like $30 a night. Their top floor is the
super high,
right, super high, and you can like the windows lean forward and face
No,
the
thank you.
ground,
Absolutely not.
and they have bars that you can hold on and look over. And beyond that, they have a fucking ride that looks like it's a roller coaster, and they put
Yes.
you in the seat and they just throw you over the edge and then bring you back and then throw you over the fuck that. Absolutely
Not a
not.
fucking chance. Not a fucking chance. Not even on a good day with a good hair day. No, thank
There
you.
is not enough booze in the entirety of Vegas to get me on that motherfucker. Okay.
Nope. Nope.
Because I'd be the
Not
tubby bitch
even
that would
if
cause
my
it to
ex
keep
was
going.
standing there. No.
Because I'd be the
Mm-mm.
tubby bitch that would, the brakes would quit with my ass on it. No, thank you.
Mm-hmm. So, um, ew, Vegas. Not ew, Vegas, but ew, memories
Ew,
of Vegas.
Vegas.
So, my last song is one that was also a bop in the 90s. The Way
Ooh.
by Fastball. Um, it was a weird, sunshiny, boppy tune about eternal sunshine and endlessly traveling, and it's actually based on horrible things. The Way is a song by American alternative rock band Fastball. It was released on. Hold on a second. I'm sorry, that was so rude. Let me just spit out my hunk of gum.
There
It
you
was
go.
released on. I was
Bama.
chewing gum, so I didn't cry. So I didn't cry a minute ago. I was chewing gum. Coping mechanisms. It was released on January 7th, 1998, as the lead single from their second studio album, All the Pain Money Can Buy, from 1998. The song was written by the band's lead vocalist, Tony Scalzo, and was produced by the band and Julian Raymond. Scalzo was inspired to write the song after reading about the disappearance of an elderly couple who were found dead in their car many miles away from their intended destination. And by many miles, we're talking hundreds. So, Alex Redek, hold on, let's see how we say it. Redekop, Alex Redekop, posted to cbc.ca on July 7th, 2016. In 1998, when Fastball released their smash hit song, The Way, most people heard the romantic tale of eternal youth and an endless road trip. But listen to the story behind the song, and I promise you'll never hear it the same way again. We began in 1986. That was a great year for us.
It was a good year. It was a good year.
Salado, Texas. Layla and Raymond are strangers. They're both grandparents, both in their 70s. Both of them lose their spouses, and they each resign to spending their golden years alone. That is, until they meet each other. Layla and Raymond fall madly in love and get married. They share everything, their last name, their families, their love of music. Every summer, Layla and Raymond pack up the Oldsmobile and drive 15 miles from Salado to Temple, Texas for their favorite fiddling festival. Did you know there were fiddling festivals? I had no idea, and I feel like my life is incomplete.
Wait
I
till I
need
tell
to
you
find
about
fiddling festivals.
wait till I tell you about like fried chicken festivals and strawberry festivals, and
I know about strawberry festivals, but fiddling festivals, we've got to find that.
there's bacon festivals too, pickle festivals.
Holy fuck, shut up. Fuck a fiddling festival. Let's find the bacon festival. That's where I need to go.
Vero Beach,
That is
Florida.
actually not where I need to go. My personal trainer would say, absolutely not, Erica. What are you doing? Anyway, and in June of 1997, that's exactly what they set out to do. It's tradition. Even though Raymond was 88 and recently had a stroke, and Layla is 83 and starting to show signs of dementia, that day they hit the road to the festival like a couple of crazy teenage lovebirds. Days
This
later,
goes to show you that even though you're an adult, you sometimes need an adult to your adult to accompany you.
the adults tried, to be fair.
Oh.
Days later, in another part of Texas, Tony Scalzo, the bass player for the band Fastball, sits down at the breakfast table with a cup of coffee and a newspaper and reads the headline, Elderly Salado Couple Missing on a Trip to Nowhere. Layla and Raymond Howard set out for a fiddling festival and didn't come back. The kids are worried. The search parties are out. A few days later, Tony reads another headline, Family Still Mystified by Disappearance. Tony becomes obsessed with the story. Who were these people and where were they going without ever knowing the way? Tony writes a song about Layla and Raymond, and it isn't until after Tony plays that song for his friend, for his band Fastball, and they decide to record it, that he reads the final newspaper headline: "Elderly couple found dead in car 2 weeks after trip to festival." Layla and Raymond Howard's bodies were discovered in that Oldsmobile at the bottom of a canyon, hundreds of miles away from where they were meant to go. This is from Greensboro.com by Night Ritter News Service, originally posted July 15th, 1997, but it was updated January 25th, 2015, so I don't know the difference between the two articles. Arkansas State Police had never encountered a case like the one of an elderly Salado couple found dead in their car Saturday night near Hot Springs. The police had dealt with missing person cases, but not one in which a couple with so many mental impairments had traveled so far from home. "This has been an education for us," said Arkansas State Police spokesman Bill Sadler. "I don't know what else could have been done, but that's one of the things we're going to be looking at, is trying to figure out if we could have done more." The bodies of Raymond Howard, 88, who suffered memory lapses since having surgery, and Leela Howard, 83, who had Alzheimer's disease, were discovered Saturday night in a rugged, remote area near Hot Springs, Arkansas. They apparently became disoriented and drove off the road. The Howards had been missing since June 28th, when they left their Central Texas home to attend a festival 15 minutes away in Temple. Family members think they became disoriented, missed the exit, and somehow wound up in Arkansas. The couple were stopped by authorities in Arkansas twice.
Oh my God.
But neither officer recognized their impairments. Sadler said future training sessions for state police will include a review of the Howard case, so officers will be more aware. The site where the Howards were located was about 70 miles from where they were stopped by a sheriff's deputy near Paris, Arkansas, on the night of June 28th. They were stopped again in neighboring Yell County about an hour later. But both stops occurred before the missing person report was entered on the National Crime Computer at 10:46 p.m. Still, Layla Copeland's son, Hal Copeland, said it should have been easy for deputies to realize his mother was disoriented. "I wasn't there, so I can't say anything." "She got real nervous real fast, and I think she probably was just trying to get away from them," Copeland said. "But I do have a problem with them letting her go. I think it would be pretty obvious that they were lost and scared and didn't know where they were going." "I agree," added Copeland. "In my heart, I believe they went off that ravine that Saturday night. I have no way of knowing, but that's what I feel." A preliminary autopsy report ruled out homicide, but could not say if the crash killed the couple or if they died at a later time, Sadler said. The case was the first time that Arkansas police were aware of the new Safe Return program that registers memory impaired individuals in a nationwide system. So I didn't have that on here, but I know for a fact, I think he was found inside the car and she was found outside of the car. Like she had gotten out of the car and walked a little bit. They were not both found inside the car. But
I can tell you, when my grandfather, my mother's father, when he was in his mid-80s, my grandmother had passed away probably 10 years prior or so. And he always had a routine. He was retired and he had an amazing retirement as a teacher. And he liked to go to the Dollar Tree and purchase just random nonsense. And then he would go to the grocery store and purchase a bunch of snack cakes because basically he survived on vitamins and cayenne pepper water. That's what the fuck he did.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to interject you. That's going to be you. You're going to survive off of ghost pepper water and some wild, super hot thing, some super hot, spicy thing. I know you. Right. I know this about you.
So, like, the cayenne pepper is very detoxing. So it's not like spicy. But
okay, well, you're going to use it for the burn.
Right.
You just want to feel it.
He would eat like a handful of vitamins. And so he just wasn't hungry. When your stomach is full of vitamins, you're not going to be hungry. But he would snack on like snack cakes and shit. But over the course of his like mid 80s, he started to set in with Alzheimer's and would get lost in the same 2 miles of area that he had lived in for well over 50 years. He would get lost and he would call my mom or he'd call my uncle and he'd be like, I don't know where I'm at. And they'd be like, Dad, where are you? He's like, I went to the Dollar Tree, but now I don't know where I'm at. And he was driving in circles in his neighborhood and couldn't find his house. There would be no way.
It's a very sad disease.
It is. It's terrible. And I can't imagine going on a road trip to somewhere that he didn't go to every day for 50 years. You know what I mean? And that doesn't even make sense to me why somebody would think that was a good idea. Like, let's just go on a road trip.
Apparently the kids had said to their parents, why don't you just let us drive? They're like, no, it's what we do. It's fine. We'll be fine. We're not where we're going. And there is that battle because my grandmother also, had Alzheimer's. And it's like, luckily she had my grandfather and he was still of sound mind at the time. But like, if she hadn't had him, he was her crutch for a lot of interactions. She didn't remember us. The one thing that I can say was constant was that she loved my babies. She looked at my grandfather and she said, Bert, can we keep this baby? And it would be the silver lining because in those scenarios, you have to look for the silver lining. Otherwise it hurts so fucking bad. You're just destroyed by it. But she would look at my babies every time. And I knew that she loved my babies and nothing else mattered to me. Right. I didn't care. She didn't know who I was. She didn't know who these kids were, but she loved those babies. But I can't imagine how terrified those kids must have been knowing that they were just lost. And then the rage and infuriating sensation of knowing that the police stopped them twice. Oh my God. I think that I would have just
like, where are you headed conversations happening? And they would have said, we're going to the Fiddling Festival in such and such Texas. By golly, you're in Arkansas right now.
You're in Arkansas, friend. Let's get you on a Greyhound bus back home. Let's call family. Let's do something.
Like that's why I'm not a cop. That shit doesn't make sense to me.
I'm not a cop for other reasons, mainly because I didn't go to college and I don't want to be a cop. But listen, if I could work with like cold case shit. Anyway, that's a different lifetime. That's a different lifeline. Some other version of me is doing that. They're living their best life. Go get them, solve those crimes. But anyway, so that is Fastball the Way. If you listen to the lyrics, if you pay attention to them, it's like, oh, this is not just a happy tune about like beautiful existences and just doing your thing. It's fucking not knowing where people are. And that's fucking scary. Yeah. But so that's all I had.
Same.
And I think we should do another round of this. Maybe we'll focus on happier song backgrounds. I don't know. But forever and always, y'all can reach out to us and you can give us suggestions on what songs we should cover or what we should do next. But,
absolutely. Our contact info is going to be the very last thing you see on this video when we're telling y'all to fix your mouth and whatnot. Yes. So anywho, that's all I've got.
That's all I got. McAllister's bring back the muffaletta.
Hey, McAllister's, bring back the muffaletta.
McAllister's, it's just you. We just want you. Nobody else. McAllister's. This message is for McAllister's. If you're not McAllister's, you can scroll. Is that what the kids are saying now?
Hashtag McAllister's bring back the muffaletta. Anyway, all right. Cut. Goodbye.
I got to figure out how to stop it. I do this every time.
Thanks for joining us. We love y'all, sweet pumpkins. Stay safe, and remember
to fix your mouth. Make sure to like, share, follow, and subscribe to get updates and our latest episodes.